Welcome back to Hold That Thought. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Becca. Last week, we launched our new mini-series, our second, called
Working Together, Elements of Interpersonal Relationships.
The first mini-series we did was more focused on the intrapersonal, what's occurring within our minds. And this one is about relating to others and collaboration, so to speak.
And today, we're going to be talking about the social contract theory and rule following, and how that kind of binds us together.
Exactly. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm good. It was an amazing weekend of one of our best friends visiting.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
So fun.
My favorite part, I think, was the hike that we did. And we had a lot of conversations around whether the hike was type 1, type 2, or type 3 fun.
Yeah.
Everyone
and we never got to the bottom of whether there is a type 3.
Is there a type 3? I think there is a type 3.
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought. I think it's that years have to pass. It's miserable while it's happening and remains unpleasant in retrospect, often involving high risk, suffering, or a near disaster.
Oh,
so it's literally not fun.
Yeah,
that's
fun.
A misnomer. Type 2 is that it's not fun in the moment and then really fun to look back on. And type 1 is just fun. I was having type 1 fun.
I was too.
I think some people were having type 1.5 fun.
I was having type 1.5.
Yeah. Basically, I mislabeled the hike as a nature walk. And that's on me.
Tim and Kate are listening to this, rolling their eyes.
Exactly. It's not my first time I have led my friend astray.
Yeah. No, it was amazing. Beautiful views, great chats.
Really the reminder of why you live in Northern California.
Yeah, totally.
That's the crux of it.
And then my favorite part always is going to this place called Hookfish after. It's, how do you describe it? It's like a brewery meets really good seafood
restaurant. Yeah.
It's like seafood meets Mexican food.
Yeah.
So good.
They specialize in burritos and tacos.
And if you go, you should have, what's that thing that I got? The dip.
The poke dip.
The poke dip with
to die for.
Chips.
With
yummy.
Tortilla chips.
Tortilla chips.
Yeah. So good.
So yummy. I had the same weekend as T. I'd say my highlight from the weekend was just cuddles.
Oh, you love a cuddle.
I was talking in therapy today about how much I value physical touch in like friendships and how it just makes me feel so, there's something about it. We were trying to kind of, well, mostly I was trying to figure out what it was that is so comforting about physical touch. And I'm sure, scientists or psychologists can answer that very succinctly. But my own thought around it was that it had to do, like if someone's touching you, it's pretty unlikely, unless it's a certain kind of touch, that they don't love you. Like it's, if someone's touching you, they feel comfortable with you. There's so much inherent, like there's inherent trust.
I think it represents a familiarity that is so relaxing.
Yeah.
It kind of represents that you are spending time with people or a person that you have no need to be or do any pretense or be buttoned up or anything like that.
And with Millie, I just it was so comforting to have a hand on me at all times, or like my foot would be on her butt while we're watching a movie, and it just feels really cozy.
She is a big personal touch person.
She is.
Physical touch.
That one gets personal with her touch.
Yeah, it was a good weekend.
Okay, let's get into social contract and rule following. Firstly, this kind of occurred to me as a topic that we could do for this mini-series because I'm really curious about what binds us together as a society and how so many disparate personalities and cultures live somewhat cohesively. That could be argued for sure.
Yeah.
But that we've made it this far as humanity is a testament to the social contract and rule following. And as a kid, I was we joke about how I have narc tendencies, but I was so concerned with justice and fairness.
Do you think that came from your dad being a lawyer?
No, we recently talked about this. You would think that my dad being a lawyer would have instilled that in me, but actually my mom is the one who's most concerned with justice. There's a funny story, which in my family. My mom and dad were at a football game at my sister's high school when she was like 16 or something. And I guess the game had finished and there were a couple guys getting in a fight and tussling. And my mom, who always has a Diet Coke on her, just thinking so quickly, she shakes up her Diet Coke and sprays them with it.
To stop the fight?
Knock it off! Yeah, to stop the fight. Like, that's so badass. And
that's
so
really cool.
That's a person who likes a rule, I'll tell you.
Funny though, because she was breaking a rule by enforcing rules.
So the funny thing about her is she's so punk rock in her rule breaking.
Enforcement?
And then also like really adheres to norms in other ways. She's funny.
Cool.
My dad, wait, I kind of want to call him. Can I call him from your phone?
Yeah.
Because mine's recording. My dad has this thing about how he hates the word fair because there is no such thing, and he talks about it with young lawyers at his firm and like who he mentors, but I can't remember why.
Okay, let's see what he has to say. I hope he picks up.
I think if it's you calling, he'll be like, God, is my daughter in the hospital?
That's true. I'm worried. I'm worried.
No,
you're gonna have to speak right away.
It's me. What I won't do is call twice because that feels mean if he like sees multiple calls from
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we're gonna have to text him and be like, that was a pod question.
Dad?
Hello, this is Eric.
Dad. I'll say, hi, it's Beck from T's phone.
Maybe he'll call us back.
Yeah, he will. Call back if you have a chance.
He will. We'll trust. Okay, so...
But basically, when in high school, I was an upperclassman and my friends started cutting in line in the dining hall. I was like, no! Like, I stood in the back of the line with the first years because I thought I was like, it was so righteous.
That's so funny. And do you remember, is it because it was coming from a place of fear of getting called out? Like, you saw your friends not getting in trouble.
No, not about getting called out at all. It was all about like, this is not right. The years before, I had felt harmed by that expectation.
Yeah, you were operating under the golden rule.
Yes. Oh my God, totally.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, there were just so many examples as a kid of like me adhering to rules and Daddy! Dad. Hi, Dad. You're on the pod.
Hi.
How's Canada?
Hi, Eric.
He's at Whistler? No, Kicking Horse? Huh? You're at Kicking Horse? Dad, it's me.
I can't tell you. I know. It sounds like you're half talking to Taylor and half talking.
Well, I am because you're on the podcast and what you're hearing is my attention split.
Oh, I see. Yes, I'm at Kicking Horse.
Cool.
How is it so far? What have you done today?
It's unbelievable. There's all this powder everywhere. The snow is like so incredibly light and dry.
Oh,
and,
yum.
They got about 10 inches of new snow yesterday, and most of it didn't get skied out, and so you can ski like all day and ski untracked snow. It's unbelievable. It's like
okay, so this week's episode is about the social contract and rule following, and in the intro I was talking about my propensity for securing justice, and I was talking about justice versus fairness, and I remember you saying something about how you hate the word fair. Can you explain that?
Yeah, justice has a meaning. It's like the law, you apply the law, and you kind of balance consequences with actions. And if they balance out, then that's the right consequence. And, it has content. Fair, in my view, people use the word fair in a way that is content-free and means nothing more than, I think this is right. And so that's why I hate it when people say that. The other reason I hate it is because when people say, and sometimes it's not even like accusatory. Sometimes it's people say, well, I think this is the fair thing to do, right? And so they're not accusing anybody of doing anything bad. But the problem is, if somebody is sitting there and saying that, I disagree with you, now you're not only saying to them, I disagree with you, you're saying you're not being fair. And again, it's sort of it's this kind of morally laden term.
Yeah, that's also nebulous.
That has no real content.
Right. He also hates the word problematic for that reason.
Who does?
You.
Me. Oh. Problematic, I think, is also content-free.
Yeah.
I mean, it just means, anyway. But fair is worse because it has this moral, ethical sort of cast to it that if you disagree with me, you're not being fair.
And it's super subjective.
And so I really dislike fairness as the idea. So anyway, I tell people, look, it's fine to say, I think this is the way things should work. That's fine. This is my opinion. And then nobody sits there and thinks, well, you think I'm a bad person if I don't agree with you.
Yeah. That's a great
context.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love that.
Fair is almost like a virtue that we can point to and weaponize that actually has no real meaning.
And it's not situated in a context, so it is so subjective.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Okay. God, you're hacking up a lung over there.
One of the more famous philosophy books is by a guy named John Rawls, and the title of the book is Justice as Fairness. Interesting.
John Rawls was also a social contract theorist.
Oh, cool. We're definitely talking about Rousseau, Hobbes, Locke.
Wow.
Those people.
All the biggies.
All the biggies. Well, you'll listen to
so
this on Friday.
I'm really looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thanks for the cameo.
Thank you, Eric.
Sure.
Love you. Send my love to Chaz.
I will will do that.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Fun.
So fun.
First of all, that was so cute of him.
So cute.
I'm so glad he brought up Rawls, because Rawls is one of the kind of key four founding, I hate to say it,
Theorists?
fathers,
Yeah.
theorists
Sure.
of social contract theory, which I just want to give our listeners a really big caveat here that social contract theory is a massive field of philosophy, and also elements of the theory and domains of study have been explored by many different paradigms, many different philosophers, theorists, psychologists, anthropologists, and it would take us forever to unpack every single angle.
Yeah.
It's not within our scope of research or this podcast. So I just want to remind everyone that what we're doing is trying to explore this from a, kind of a unique angle and an interesting angle, but we are not pretending to be the experts on this at all. By no means. Let's just give a very brief and succinct definition of the social contract theory. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
The social contract is an agreement among individuals within a social group to abide by certain rules and laws. The basic concept is that the consent of people within a society to be subject to rules and laws, written and unwritten, gives these rules and laws legitimacy,
right,
and dictates how we operate within that society.
Yeah. Okay, so what I was seeing in the research, and again, this is like top level stuff. We're not getting into the weeds here, but Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who lived in the early 1700s, he said laws are merely the record of our own wills. And what gives our laws and governments their legitimacy is the idea that the collective will has designated them legitimacy. So the social contract depends on the consent of the governed. In politics classes in college, they referred to this as the mandate. So the sovereign, whoever is governing, whoever is brought into power, like our president, the president has a mandate, and the mandate was designated through elections. So when he says, I'm going to war, I think that's the best thing. He is bolstered by a mandate of an election and the people by proxy to make that decision in our best interests or on our behalves. There's a lot of debate around, like, if you don't win the popular vote in America, but you won the electoral vote, then you have a lesser mandate. And so, like, more fragile ground to stand on as a leader. One of Rousseau's core premises was that all human beings are motivated primarily, maybe even exclusively, by material interest. So our body, our stuff. And the need for a social contract comes from the fact that we need to mitigate that desire. Because if everyone is motivated by their own body, their own stuff, their own material self-interest, then how are we ever going to function?
Right. So we need this pact or this social contract to exist between citizens to protect from any person wielding authority over others or putting their own self-interest over others, which would create chaos.
Yeah. If everyone's only working in their own interests, then you don't have a society that functions. So then we have Hobbes, who wrote Leviathan. In this text, he imagines what human beings were like before politics.
That's what he calls state of nature.
Yes. State of nature is if we were restored to our factory default. So how do humans function absent these institutions that they have to adhere to? So you need a sovereign, a conglomeration of the collective will. And that sovereign is imbued with power or authority to make executive decisions for the whole group. So that could look like a legislative assembly or a monarch. And that sovereign is empowered to enforce or uphold the social contract and make sure that everyone is abiding by their agreements. Hobbes argues that the best regime is an absolute monarchy. And even if those rules are unjust or irrational, we'd rather live, he argues, in that orderly, obedient society than in the state of nature.
Which he deems as something that's very brutal and
lawless.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that people are in fear of losing their life in state of nature, so they'd rather not live in that freedom because it would be a constant threat to their existence.
Right. He says even if the monarch can change the laws at will and act with total impunity, it's better than the state of nature. Okay. Then we have Locke, who talks about absolute monarchy, which he says is no different than the state of nature. He argues that we either need a republic, like the United States is a republic, or a constitutional monarchy, like Canada. Do you have anything else on Locke that you would want to add?
His idea of the state of nature was a little bit different than Hobbes. He was more focused on the fact that the state of nature or the natural condition of mankind is really perfect and allows people to conduct one's life as one best sees fit, free from interference from others. But that...
So he mediates free will with the obvious need for someone in power and a governing institution or body.
Through his perspective around government.
Yeah. Because a republic, there are still checks and balances, and a constitutional monarchy is still a monarchy, but the monarch doesn't have total ability to make whatever laws they choose.
I would also like to note that all of these theorists have weaponized their viewpoints one way or another to subjugate people of different races before in the past. For example, John Locke used the concept of the state of nature and human nature to justify white Europeans taking lands from indigenous people in America. So we have to take all of this with super critical eye, just in the context that they were working within very racial hierarchies and societies back in the 18th century.
I just want to throw in here the philosopher Virginia Held.
Cool.
She said, when subjected to examination, the assumptions and conceptions of contractual thinking seem highly questionable. As descriptions of reality, they can be seriously misleading. Actual societies are the results of war, exploitation, racism, and patriarchy far more than of social contracts. She actually had this claim, which I thought was really interesting. She says, on the face of it, it seems plausible to take the relation between mother and child as the primary social relation. Since before there could have been any self-sufficient, independent man in a hypothetical state of nature, there would have to have been mothers, and the children these men would have to have been.
Yep, that's fascinating. So bringing it down all the way back to that. Take me back through that first quote you said of Held, which was that our societies are the product of war and racism.
She says,
way more than social contracts.
Yeah, actual societies are the results of war, exploitation, racism, and patriarchy far more than of social contracts.
So far more than us buying into laws that benefit us all or rules that benefit us all. Our societies have been shaped really overarchingly by these larger forces.
Right.
Of real interviolence almost between people. But if we
not
get
harmony and mutual agreement, but rather the opposite of that.
And then I think I completely agree with that. I think when we think on a smaller scale, how our societies, let's just take a day in the life of a person moving through the world. They live in a city, they leave their building, walk outside, walk to work, go to their office, go up, interact with coworkers that they don't really know that well, go after to meet friends for dinner. Like that, we are all guided by elements of rules and etiquette that I think also qualify as the social contract outside of this more political orientation that the early theorists really tied it on to.
Yeah, that's the more fun stuff anyway. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I think something that I was coming up against with Rousseau and Hobbes and all of these foundational philosophers was that the concept of this state of nature of humans in solitary nature versus humans in society, to me, wasn't really fitting right, because humans in society is a result of so many humans interacting with nothing but their hardwiring and their human nature, right? Like humans are inherently social.
Right.
No one ever has survived really as far back as we can go of our early ancestors as a single individual living on their own. So how can they distinguish? And I know this is the tenet of philosophy is building the box from the ground up, but the social contract has been such a thing in theory. And I like what Held is saying is that we really need to think about the ways in which our societies have grown outside of this theory of development. And I would actually argue that this inherent desire to live and abide by social rules and this obligation to live this community oriented, and maybe community is the wrong word, but this oriented towards others life, we see that in nature outside of humans.
Tell me about it.
So there is this concept of joint commitment, which was developed by a philosopher named Margaret Gilbert. It's the social concept where individuals are mutually obligated to act together as a single body to achieve a goal. So it's a little bit different from what we're talking about when we think about imbuing a governing body with power, but it is similar if we think about Locke and Hobbes and Rousseau conceptualizing the social contract theory as the thing that allows us to live together in harmony. An example of such a goal that Gilbert talks about in joint commitment is, conversations or political community, building up a government that is able to govern. And what she tries to do is get into the social contract not as this metaphor, but as this commitment that binds people together through mutual obligations.
Okay.
And there was a study done on joint commitment. It was published in the journal called iScience, and it observed 1,242 interactions between groups of bonobos and chimpanzees at zoos. I do want to preface that I think it's interesting that this was done completely in zoos, but that's neither here nor there. I don't know whether there was some sort of they were interacting so often with humans, maybe it shifted the results. But in 90% of cases, when the bonobos or chimpanzees were interacting with each other, when they were engaged in something together, such as social grooming or, cleaning bugs off each other, when they were interrupted from that activity, let's say a zookeeper called one of them, or there was food that was brought in, so there was need for switching of their focus, they always did something like a sign to show that the interaction was done, that they would be coming back. So they were communicating in a way. They had their own rules of social etiquette of how to start and stop or start, pause, and continue interactions that spoke to this element of this joint commitment. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And the closer the relationship between the animals, the less you saw this behavior, which we think about all the time. When do we implement rules and etiquette and like follow elements of the social contract within interpersonal relationships? It's with people that we're feeling less close with. I don't feel the need to show my, good behavior with you.
Right. So a couple bonobos who really knew each other were like
ignoring, they were like just ditching the...
They didn't have anything.
They didn't really have anything. But I just think that's interesting because it speaks to this joint commitment that Gilbert was getting at, of trying to find these orientations toward commitment between people, which I think is kind of the basis of the social contract when we get to it, and was finding it in examples of societies, quote unquote, outside of just our human built society that speaks to something probably more innate in our desire to and orientation towards these behaviors.
Yeah.
That build up the social contract.
I think the word commitment is really central to this. And I kind of want to pivot now into pro-social behaviors versus antisocial, because the social contract is built upon the idea that we have to engage pro-socially in the interest of others, not just ourselves, in order to preserve society.
Would you say the greater good is a word? I didn't see the greater good as a tenet or a concept in social contract theory, but
but it seems like an unspoken layer, no?
Yeah, I agree.
All of this kind of made me think also about antisocial personality disorder, which I first encountered in grad school. It's in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for clinicians to know how to diagnose a client when they present with different disordered criteria. And antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, is defined as a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others that begins in childhood or early adolescence and continues into adulthood. It is characterized by deceitfulness, impulsivity, irritability, aggression, reckless disregard for safety, and lack of remorse. And importantly, this diagnosis requires behavior. It can't just be based on inner traits.
Like
what
thoughts?
A client, what a client shares with the clinician that they experience internally, if it's not actually having any implications for the outside world. Social connotes that like interpersonal layer.
Right.
I saw a doctor on YouTube talking about how a summary of this is that their entire being is deceitful. And that sounds so cruel and unkind and cynical. But when I was working with clients, I had a client who presented with antisocial personality disorder. We eventually decided it was comorbid with narcissistic personality disorder. And the way supervisor was like, your visceral experience in the room is super important.
You as the therapist?
As the therapist, a person who has antisocial personality disorder or BPD gives you this visceral sense of like, you're disquieted. There's something, it's like, I can't even quite explain it. And I don't mean to further stigmatize these diagnoses, but it really is like a felt sensation on top of meeting the criteria. Like, it's just a way to affirm your instinct that something's not quite aligned there.
Okay.
So psychopathy and sociopathy, psychopaths and sociopaths, as they're colloquially referred to, can be conflated with antisocial personality disorder.
And those aren't the same thing?
ASPD is the only one that's an official diagnosis. So psychopathy and sociopathy, neither of those are like formal clinical diagnoses.
You can't
today.
say, okay, this person is diagnosed as a sociopath.
No, they're descriptive labels that are mostly used in like media
Got
and
it.
casual speech.
When I was doing research around the psychology of adhering to the social contract, and I think there's a lot of ways in which we could talk about this, the desire for peace and protecting our own well-being, and the assumption that we need to protect others' well-being in order to protect our own. But there's an element of this that is related to our understanding of consequence. And two psychologists, Kahneman and Tversky, who have done a lot of research on an analysis of the way in which the human brain conceptualizes outcome, most specifically within the concept of behavioral economics. There's actually a really good Michael Lewis book.
I was going to say,
such a good book. God, remind me the name of the book. I had written it down.
He's written a lot, and almost all of them are about behavioral economics.
Oh, really?
Moneyball?
No.
The Big Short.
No. I'll find it. The Undoing Project, a friendship that changed our minds, which is about these two psychologists.
He's written so many bangers.
He's written bangers. Oh, to be Michael Lewis. You've met him.
I have.
So really quickly, the concept that I think is applicable here is that the human brain experiences more pain when you lose something than when you gain something. So there is an asymmetry of how people experience gains and losses, which explains why people look to avoid risk, even if the likelihood or the gain is possibly outweighing the loss. We over-index on the potential for loss than the gain.
Doesn't that seem bizarre? Because then how is gambling working?
He talks about that. We have heuristics around. We just are very bad at actually calculating the odds.
Okay.
But the pain you feel when you lose something is way more prolonged than the joy you feel when you find it.
Yeah.
So most people are fearing way more the repercussions of what's going to happen, acting outside of the moral and social norms that we have come to understand as leading to a functional society than the own personal gain of potentially getting away with getting something for free.
Yeah. And that's why someone who does not have that ability to assess risk properly is labeled as disordered.
But is it assessing risk or just understanding what they're doing is that they're assessing risk differently? They're not assessing upsetting the social order.
That does not matter to them.
It's not a risk to them. And the repercussions don't exist.
Right.
So interesting.
But I guess when I said that, I meant more so as like what is widely viewed as the right litmus test for risk. Their scale is off, which is part of why it feels viscerally uncomfortable to be in front of someone. Because when you're in front of someone who is not pro-social, who in fact, it's like, this is unusual, which again gets to like the idea that this social contract doesn't work if the majority of people aren't bought in.
Yep, exactly.
And that's why it's such an unusual experience to be in front of someone who's antisocial.
Because we often do not experience it.
Yeah.
And we have such a fascination with watching from afar people that are not abiding by the social contract. Yeah.
Crime junkies love this stuff. Who else?
Our societal fascination with Netflix series about serial killers like Ted Bundy.
Yep.
I think it's so morbid, but we're all obsessed with trying to understand what's going through those people's minds because we literally, it's not the way our brains can conceptualize moving through the world.
Totally. And this is a bit of a dovetail, but when you think about intrusive thoughts, there must be really great literature on this, honestly, about why people are so obsessed with crime, especially now. But it's almost like you're watching the person who is doing the thing that, like, you've thought about yelling in a theater or something profane. We have these intrusive thoughts of like, oh, I'm going to turn my car. I'm going to turn the wheel into traffic. Like, these are things that naturally occur to people, but they would never do. But you know how close that line is between like, oh, I do that and I don't do that. Like, I'm choosing. And to see someone who theoretically has the same machinery in their head to help them discern whether to engage with something pro-social or antisocial, to see them choose the antisocial option is so perplexing because we're able to combat those thoughts all day.
Yeah. And I think this is the main question that often gets cited as the crux or the kernel of all social contract theorists is how can we be free people, free individuals, and live together?
Yeah.
And they are constantly trying to understand how living together is taking away from our individualism or less individualism and more freedom as an individual. And so I just think it's interesting because in a lot of ways we are exercising choice every single day to adhere to these laws to keep ourselves and others safe. But that's threatened when you see people who are choosing the being free over the living together.
Right. Exactly. That's a really good way to say that.
I think this is why we said this topic is so vast because there's implications of this in politics, democratic societies, down to social etiquette and rule following and norms in our day-to-day interaction, as simple as what we do and do not do, even though we technically have the individual power to do it. It's just a vast topic and it kind of intimidates me.
It really is.
Yeah.
In looking at the research, there was some talk about how it's funny that no one ever like asks you if you wanted to sign the social contract. You just are born into this world and it's expected of you. And at the school I taught at, the boarding school, it was such a short period of time. It was a semester program, as I've talked about before. So students were only there for 4 months. And at the beginning, we would have a talk called The Great Expectations, which then outlined, it's a Dickens reference, outlined all of the norms of the program. And we were getting students from across the country, from different backgrounds. So it was important that we all aligned on what was culturally expected accepted in the program. I think we literally had them sign something.
Really?
I think they literally signed like the Great Expectations, and each paper had the list, and then we had to collect them.
That's I was doing some research around teaching and building classroom cultures, and that's very much pulling on the social contract foundations and really effective.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super effective. And adults also bought into it in the same way. Like, we were present. It wasn't just students who were sitting in the audience. It was adults and students. And as a cabin parent, they lived in cabins. As a cabin parent, I also would be involved in facilitating them coming up with a cabin contract that then they would brainstorm, and we would put up a poster in the cabin that denoted all of their mutually agreed upon norms. And everyone would vote on whether a norm would get ratified. And then they all signed that too. It was such an interesting, it's so rare that you have the opportunity to get everyone on exactly the same page, and those who cannot adhere to the rules cannot stay.
Something you just said made me think of something I was reading of being on the same page, which so much of what we're talking about just requires people to be on the same page of what they believe is, I'm not going to say fair because that's, but just right versus wrong. And they did a study about the unwritten rules of human behavior, studied across 90 societies. Started off with this published study done by a woman named Michelle Gelfand, published in 2011. And this was additional research published in 2024 that continued that by working across human social research across 6 continents. Focused on trying to understand how different societies and cultures differ in what they deem acceptable or not within social norms, down to, to what you were saying of standing up in a movie theater and screaming versus, not using headphones when you're sitting on a plane.
Right.
And annoying.
How about socks off on a plane?
How about socks off? I've never done that. That will get to our later game. Oh, yay. Okay. So the research really was able to synthesize that some societies are tighter and looser in the way in which the collective is following the same set of norms. But all cultures and all societies are pretty much dictated by and driven by 3 main concerns when it comes to deciding what to follow. So across human nature, we are all driven by 3 main concerns that get us onto the same page. It's just how we deem the moral value to each of these things that kind of changes what we deem as, okay, don't stand up in the movie theater and scream, versus a culture that does.
Okay.
And
scream away.
Scream away. And those 3 concerns are whether the behavior is vulgar, whether the behavior is inconsiderate or going to harm other people, or whether the behavior is pointless or lacking sense, like senseless.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 motivators. It's just whether and how my society could deem this behavior as not vulgar or not pointless or not inconsiderate, and another culture would deem it differently against these 3 criteria.
Yeah.
But it's about being on the same page amidst this criteria.
Yeah. What's so interesting to me about living in the United States is that I think in a lot of ways we lack a concrete social contract. Like, we have too many citizens to all be on the same page. And that's why there are such...
Well, we have too many subcultures.
Yeah, but that's by virtue of having too many people. Like,
or is it that we're too big?
That's what I'm saying.
Or literally amount of land.
Right. Which translates into population.
Yeah.
Like, we are too big geographically and population wise to all be on the same page. And we're new. So we don't have the same entrenched beliefs and values perhaps that, say, a country like China does, or a country like India. I also think a classic tension is intergenerational. Maybe this is ubiquitous, but what I view as the social contract is probably different from what my parents view as the social contract. We're probably aligned. Like, the Venn diagram is probably like 2/3 or so we're on the same page, but I would say 1/3 of it is contested between us because times are changing, and they always say that.
Yeah.
Generation to generation.
That has to do a little bit with the fact that I think we're getting more loose, quote unquote, as a culture, as a country, from abiding tightly to the same rules.
Yeah.
And in some ways that's been great. More expression of different ways to live a life.
Yeah.
More expression outside of, like, I can't imagine having to abide by the moral conduct of women in the 1600s in the US. We couldn't even speak with not spoken to. Like, that was an example of how the social contract was perpetuating real damage.
Yeah.
We could go into a million ways in which it's been weaponized, but I think there's ways in which that looseness is translating into freedom of living your life as you should.
Right.
But there's also real danger when we don't have any kind of understanding of how to protect the well-being of the other people around us.
Right.
But I will say that it is human nature to want to protect other people. I really think it is. Behavioral economic researchers did a study to understand whether someone would act altruistically to another person that they don't know. Because the hypothesis was that you'd only do that if the other person is going to give you credit for acting altruistically and so that they could do it back to you.
Yeah.
But more often than not, people act altruistically to strangers.
Yeah.
Even though they'll know they won't ever get credit for it or reciprocation.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Doesn't that make you feel good?
Yeah, it does.
And
it reaffirms kind of my worldview before reading this.
Yeah. And you feel like reading all of this has changed your worldview?
It made me a little more pessimistic, I guess.
Which things in particular?
I guess less so related to reading this and more so hearing people talk about how the fabric of our society has deteriorated. And like the ICE raids are a perfect example of how the social contract, which is based on the assumption that we are giving up some of our rights and freedoms in exchange for safety and protection.
Yep.
The ICE raids are a perfect example of that not being adhered to by the government. And so I think just based on where we are in space and time right now, I have more pessimism than I used to about altruism and our inherent goodness. But
completely agree. I think this has been an example time of us fearing the institutions of power, but seeing great beauty in really small, minute neighbor to neighbor interpersonal relations. Totally. And it's really important to remember those in these times where the power at large is crumbling or the morality that we've come to rely on feels like it's crumbling. I have a game for you.
Okay.
And it's called Follow Not Follow.
Okay.
To wrap us up.
Did you come up with it?
Well, yeah, it's like not really a game.
Follow Not
But
Follow.
I'm just going to say things that are examples of unspoken rules or explicit rules that I know you are a rule follower.
Yeah.
And you love justice and right and wrong.
I am and I'm not.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're not like a teetotaler.
I have some punk rock.
You're not a square.
I'm not a square.
Certainly not. But these are such a good examples of rules that are so easily broken. And I just want to know whether you break them or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Fun. And then can I also hear your answers?
Yeah.
As we go. Okay.
So it's both rules and etiquette. And I feel like those two things bleed a little bit or they're points on the same spectrum. Okay. I know you don't have a dog, but you're in a park with your dog and it says keep dog on leash. Do you keep your dog on your leash?
I'm looking around to other people to see if they have theirs on the leash, which is
okay. And if they don't?
If they don't, then I'll take mine off.
But
if I'm the only one there, or if all the others are on leashes, I'm keeping mine on.
If you're the only one there, you keep yours on the leash.
Yeah.
Okay, you know when you're going over the Bay Bridge and before you get going, there's this red light.
Yeah.
So you can go straight on the toll or not, and there's like 8 lanes.
Right.
There's a red light.
Yep.
And then it turns green.
Yep.
It's to eliminate traffic on the bridge. Do you stop at the red light?
Always.
I know, me too.
But mostly because there are police cars loitering there.
I've seen multiple times cars go through, and I get so mad because I'm like, here we are, all 8 of us in a line waiting for our green.
Guys, not cool.
Not cool. And it's different than, this is why it's easily broken, because it's different than when you're actually at a red light at an intersection where you could get physically
There's actual
hurt.
danger.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, clearly it's just your own self-interest that keeps you from following the red light at the crosswalk.
This is why I'm like, I hate it when people are like, I don't vote because what does my vote mean? I'm like, we all have to be voting for it. Like, we can't, if everyone thought that way, then we'd be fucking screwed.
Well, that gets back to your concept of, democracy. Like, the very basis of the mandate.
Well, but on a different level. We can't all be thinking individually. We have to think collectively.
Otherwise, everything falls apart.
I don't cast my vote thinking this is one vote. I'm like, I'm casting
like that,
amongst my peers in my community. Because if I thought of it just like it was one vote, it does require a little bit of delusion.
But
or
not,
like tricking the brain.
literally,
it can be decided by a handful of votes.
And when we go outside and it's raining, it's only raining because there's more than one drop.
Bam! God, I didn't know you were going to take it there, you poet.
Otherwise, it's just a single... Yeah, let it lie. Okay, you're at a crosswalk. Do you wait for the light to change, or do you jaywalk?
I'm that cocky motherfucker putting my foot out into the, like, as soon as I see the other light has turned red, I do look both ways because some people really play fast and loose with yellow to red. Yeah. No, with yellow to red, like the cars. But I'll go before it's a walk sign.
Okay. Hold the door for the person behind you.
Always. I often get stuck holding it for
everyone.
A handful.
Aww,
yeah.
Isn't that nice?
I love being like, sure thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
See you.
You're at a park and there's a sign on the grass that says "Don't walk on the grass."
You're loving the like parks and recreation.
I'm Leslie Nope.
Leslie Nope. Okay, it says wait, what?
There's a sign on the grass that says "Don't walk on the grass."
I adhere to that mostly because of the stewardship of the natural world that was instilled into me ever since I did backcountry expeditions in college. Like it's for me, it's like a leave no trace thing, and
really?
It's not as much about, even if it is manicured, it's nature.
Yeah.
Nature tugs on my heartstrings.
Yeah, fair enough.
Any others?
You're an empath. This gets more into etiquette. Arrive late, earlier on time.
I'm pretty on time.
You're punctual.
I'm pretty punctual. My family is known for being late.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that make you uncomfortable?
Time. Yes. But also, I actually have really good, I have a good sense of time. I feel like generally I know how to budget time and be realistic about how long something is going to take me. How long it'll take for me to walk somewhere, etc.
Yeah. All right, last one. Close your mouth when you chew.
Yeah.
Elbows on the table.
Yes, but my mom gets mad.
Yeah. All right, I'm done.
Mad sometimes. Yay! That was so fun.
Right? I jaywalk all the time, even if the light tells me not to go.
Yeah.
But I look both ways to make sure no car's coming. But
we're New Yorkers.
We're New Yorkers. What can we say? I think I hold the door for the person behind me, but there's times when I feel like I'm distracted in my own head and then I don't because I'm literally not paying attention. And that's when I get really worried that I'm way too distracted. I need to take my head up.
Yeah.
Close my mouth when I chew. Yes. Honestly, I would not keep my dog on a leash. I would say that's arbitrary.
Well, you've got bigger cojones because you've had dogs.
We also got in trouble over Thanksgiving. We took our dog off a leash. Baby Stevie Girl. We took Stevie Girl. Stevie Girl does not go to the bathroom if she's on a leash. She's an absolute princess.
She's such a princess.
No. And we enable it. We took her to a park and we were like, well, she has to go. So we let her off leash and a little narc came up and was like, excuse me, you really should be putting your dog back. I just was surprised how quickly I was chagrined by this stranger who couldn't really do anything to me.
What's the idea that the dogs are going to fight each other?
I also think there was
hump each other?
Or you're not going to notice when it poops or something.
Oh, okay. I love that Stevie can't.
She's such a
while
freaking
being
princess.
on leash. I wouldn't either. I'm like, get away from me. Let me do my thing.
She's so private. She runs off into a corner of the woods to do it where we can't see her.
Wow.
Such a lady.
Such a lady.
Just a lady.
Next week's episode is going to be on
jealousy, interpersonal jealousy.
I'm curious about the difference between jealousy and envy.
Ooh, great. Can't wait.
And as a spoiler, I think there's a lot to learn from our jealousy.
I was literally about to say I'm interested to dissect both the benefits of jealousy as well as the downsides because often it's put in such a negative light, but it's human.
It's human.
It's evolutionarily
it's
information. And it's information. Yeah.
Okay.
Love you. Thank you, Phoebe Fry, for this episode's music.
And thank you, Emily Kiernan, for the beautiful cover art.
If you like this episode, please like, share, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next week.